welcome everybody. We're really excited to have you here today. This is to discuss one of the biggest changes impacting aged care providers. So we've got the new 215-minute care mandate, and more importantly, it's all around how we can help you navigate these challenges. So I'm really excited to be here with you. My name is Jacinta Newman. I'm Head of Workforce Strategy here at Reejig across APAC. I have quite a soft space for this sector. Actually, I worked at Uniting in New South Wales for a few years across New South Wales and ACT. So I've seen firsthand, the incredible impact that that our employees have on this sector, and how important it is to look after those that are so special in our society. So I was head of talent and internal mobility, and it's a really challenging space, but I'm really excited to be here and talking to you all about all of these changes. And I am joined by the awesome Mike Reed. So Mike, I might hand over to you for a quick intro.
Thanks, Jacinta. Incredibly running through this with you on this podcast, so on the webinar. Working with customers in the space, it's clear how mission-driven the individuals and those organisations are, and it's easy to work alongside them to move the dial on problems like this. Because of the strength of mission there. My name is Mike Reed, as Jacinta said. Chief Product Officer, one of the co-founders at Reejig. What sits underneath this is our work ontologies. So that's really a structured and relational way of understanding individual industries, the things, the work that gets done, the skills that are required to execute on that work, the effort that's involved, and where the opportunity is. So really linking it back to the work that needs to be done and how we can help that workforce do it more. Across the ontologies, again, across 23 particular industries, we've looked at around aggregating 130 million individual career data points to understand what has happened, what is happening, and in those areas of industries which are moving forward ahead of the curve, where is the trajectory of work going? So really interested in jumping in into this.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. So we know that the new Aged Care Act for 2024 is introducing significant workforce challenges. So the 215-minute care mandate, we know that's a major shift that's requiring aged care providers to ensure that every resident receives the required care time, of which 44 minutes of that must come from a registered nurse. And I'm having loads of conversations, and you are too, right, Mike, around, leaders in this space and the challenge that they're all seeing. And at the end of the day, there really is just simply not enough RNs, ENs or PCWs to go around. So the key challenges that we're looking at addressing today, obviously the workforce shortages, demand is outpacing supply. Our providers, you've got compliance pressures. So, non-compliance, well, that's going to result in possibly could result in funding reductions. And obviously we're experiencing operational inefficiencies as well. So providers are feeling like they need to do more with less, or more with existing staff. So this session is really about solutions, and it's looking at how AI and workforce intelligence can actually help aged care providers meet your compliance, but also more than that, making your workforce resilient, robust, and looking after those who are most in need. So let's jump in. What's at stake? We know that there's a huge amount at stake here. So let's talk about why this matters. The Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission is enforcing compliance. So that means that providers have to consistently meet these care minute requirements. Failing to meet that mandate could possibly result in funding reductions, as I mentioned earlier, and increased regulatory scrutiny. And what we need to think about, and the conversations that we're having as well, is that hiring alone is not going to solve this problem. Providers need a way to optimize your existing workforce, and we need to work to avoid burnout. And we also need to meet that compliance without unnecessary overhead. So it's not about just rushing out and thinking about, oh my gosh, how are we going to sort of, add 50% of RNs to our workforce? It's more about how can we rethink the workforce structures that we have so that we're using our people in the most efficient and effective way possible. Does that make sense all to you too, Mike? Like, have you got anything more to add on that?
Yeah, I think this is where it gets super clear. So a lot of industries are seeing technology, AI, automation as an opportunity to achieve operational efficiency and do more and need less. And the conversations we're having in those spaces, well, what can we do with the investment in your human capital? What can we do with those skills that you've got with the people who understand your business?
Yeah.
In aged care, it's different. It is very different because what the regulation is reflecting the need, increased quality of care delivered by a human to a human, and mandating care minutes is a way of making sure that nobody's losing sight of there's got to be a care factor here.
Yeah.
What this really tells us is it's not about doing it's not that operational efficiency shift. It's about delivering care, and that's what's really exciting about the opportunity here, because it's not about replacing caregivers with technology. It's about amplifying caregivers' ability and capacity to deliver care.
Yeah, exactly. We've all seen the numbers, right? So we know that we've got fewer staff and that we've got increasing care demand. So this is just really adding to the burden of our aged care providers. So, I mean, the trends are continuing. So we're seeing this, we saw this still all through 2024, and it's continuing, in terms of forecasts for really the next 10 years or more. So we've got widespread decline in these direct care roles. So all key workforce segments have shrunk since 2020, despite the rising demand, right, in aged care services. We've got registered nurse shortages and they persist. And despite policy mandates, RN numbers are still dropping, with Australia facing, I think it's the latest data, Mike, that we read is Australia's facing an estimated shortfall of just under 1,500 RNs in aged care between this year and next year. So that's huge when we just think about that in itself. We're also seeing, interestingly enough, so this is FTE numbers, but we're seeing a surge in agency workers. So actually, we're seeing an increase over the last 3 years in the reliancy on agency and subcontractor staff. But then with that as well, we're seeing all the challenges that providers are experiencing when they're trying to bring in skilled visa workers into this space as well. So that's sort of another burden or headache, I guess, to throw into the mix. We've got these increased workloads. We've got client to staff ratios that have risen from 1.5 to 1.7 clients per FTE. And obviously that's leading to higher stress and burnout risks. And then, as we mentioned before, of course, we've got the financial pressures on providers, but something else that we need to think about, and as I'm talking to leaders in this space in Australia as well, is the shrinking workforce numbers come as aged care providers consolidate. So with a decline in the number of residential aged care providers in 2024, this is further adding, I guess, to the burden. Any further thoughts? Yeah,
and like there's a whole lot of things shifting at the same time. There's a move globally towards home care as a much more significant piece of this puzzle, with a lot more control and support around it, rather than historically just being something that was potentially looked after within the remit of a family. This is now a key part of the aged care industry, is how we deliver that care wherever the resident is. And it's not just a cost thing, it's a benefit of life thing. So not only are we seeing challenges around sustaining the workforce, we're seeing the nature of the work changing from in-facility to significant delivery needs around home care. And at the same time, we're an aging population. It's not just because I fully intend to be much older than I am, that this is something that's just happening because of what's possible in health now. So we have an aging population. We have a real constraints around the workforce. We've got a changing nature of how it's delivered. This industry is right in the middle of dealing with this at the same time as every other industry is trying to understand, what does AI mean for me? What does telemetry mean for me? What does automation? So it's this is the moment to stop and plot what should we be doing different to deliver care successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a snapshot, this is what it looks like. This is sort of summarizing what we've just talked about. This won't be new to everybody on this call. So these are the conversations that Mike and I are having out in market with leaders. You know, and I guess at the end of the day, how can providers meet the care minute mandate without increasing admin burden or overloading staff? And really, what we're here to show you is how we can help you to leverage an AI-powered workforce intelligence, and what that sort of looks like for you when we start to think about workforce utilization, because we need to be far more proactive and innovative when it comes to working with the amazing people that we already have in our teams, and how we can take tasks away from them so that they can do what truly matters most, so that they can focus on the job that they're there to do in the first place, so that they can be human-centered, and so that they can work towards providing that amazing level of care that we all want, right? So let's get into it. So really, at the end of the day, we're talking about being bold and responsible. The aged care sector, we know it's at a tipping point. So we need a workforce strategy that meets compliance, obviously, without overburdening our workforce. So what we need to think about, I guess, are three key things when we're looking at this. Redesign work. Redesign work is all around looking at tasks. It's not just roles. It's all about understanding what is the work that is being done, and then working to improve efficiency in that, as I mentioned before. The second piece is around assigning work to the right roles. Once we understand the work, then we can make sure that we're taking the right work to the right workers. It's ensuring that staff are working at that optimal level, and that they are focusing on that human-centered tasks and human-centered approach. And then the third piece is all about reskilling staff. So how can we look to build incredible internal career pathways so that we actually create a sustainable workforce, and not one that is a revolving door, and not one that is relying, as we're just seeing, on that contractor or subcontractor, basis. So I think, let's really get into the nuts and bolts on how we look to optimize our workforce. We want to make this shift, but it's not an easy thing to do. And these are, again, the conversations that we're having in terms of we need to start the conversation, we need to be bold, and we just need to think about taking a small piece and working with that first. So it's all around, let's look to reinvent your workforce, understand what care delivery at a task level looks like. It's not just by role title. So it's looking at that outcome rather than looking at the title itself. So to do that, it's understanding the work, as I mentioned before, and the actual tasks. Move work to worker. So assign those tasks dynamically based on skills and availability. And then retain and reskill. So use AI to identify those career pathways that keep our people engaged. So when we optimize our workforce utilization, we can ensure that we do have the right people, focused on the right work, Mike, as you were saying before, and allowing caregivers to spend more time with their residents and deliver that quality care and meet those required care minutes more effectively. So what does that look like? What is the AI approach? It's all around the fact that jobs have tasks, tasks need skills, and people have skills. What AI does is it automates those tasks. So that frees staff up for the high value care, and it improves our workforce alignment. So we're not just looking at job titles, it's really breaking the work down into tasks and skills and seeing where those efficiencies can be gained. So how AI can help, I guess, is three things. First of all, automating those repetitive tasks and freeing up the staff for direct care. Secondly, identifying those skill gaps. And that's really important to a lot of people that I'm talking to as well, is understanding how come, from a workforce perspective, how can we identify the capability gaps and those skill gaps? And once we understand that, how can we use that to help structure career pathways? Because we know that that's going to improve retention. And then the third piece is all about allocating work dynamically based on real-time workforce data. So all of this ensures that care minutes are delivered efficiently and that our staff are working where they add the most value. And workforce planning, as I mentioned before, is proactive. Rather, I had to think of the word then, proactive, rather than reactive. So I think, Mike, I'm really excited, I guess, to sort of hand over to you to sort of see the roles that are the most impacted and also some of the data that sits behind that.
Yep, thanks, Jacinta. And these three roles are the ones that are specifically called out in the Aged Care Act. Obviously, they're the ones that we are looking to support in their ability to deliver care minutes. So they are impacted not in we need to think about what to do with these people. It's that we need to support these people to deliver a higher volume of quality care, not by working harder, but by working smarter, by augmenting, by amplifying their ability to deliver care with technology. Alongside these, in that lens of impact, it's not just the frontline who I think we need to ensure that we're supporting, because it is by supporting technicians and diagnostic, it's by supporting administrative staff that we allow the registered nurse who finds that they are only able to execute 30% of commit 30% of their time to direct care, by removing those tasks that are consuming the other 70% where possible and increasing the amount of care that they can deliver from 30% to 60%. So without adjusting the workforce size, we're doubling the amount of minutes we can make available by focusing on those non-care activities that are currently in their lap, they're currently having to deliver, and looking for ways to leverage the rest of the workforce and technology to deliver that. So this is what we're looking at here, is an example of how we think about the role. And you can see, and as you called out at the start, when we think about work, we think about the work. It's not the role. It is those set of tasks that together reflect the work that an individual is delivering to create the value. And in here, it's a combination of those care activities and the non-care activities that are still necessary for compliance, and also to manage and to plan and to communicate effectively. So we see here, there's at the bottom of this, you can see a set of tasks. This is not all of the tasks that someone would do, but these are the key tasks that are relevant to the role, the things that this role needs to do in order to deliver on their outcome. Those tasks require skills, the skills that the individual has. That's the relationship. A skill isn't related to a role. Skill is specifically related to the tasks that we need that person to do, the work that we need them to deliver. And what we see alongside those tasks at the bottom of this example is the amount of time that we understand individuals typically spend on those tasks. So we can now start to identify those areas of biggest value. So when, for example, we were looking at the care activities here, administering the routine and non-routine, so the classical clinical care, those activities, we're looking to increase those percentages. And that's not just related to that. It's by reducing the amount of time spent on other tasks. That's the mechanism that we're looking for here. Up the top, you can see a range of metrics that we look to help us to identify the best investment of effort to achieve that. There's metrics around the AI potential, which is the opportunity to replace some of that manual activity that's being performed with automated or AI activity. Risk balance for the maturity of the technology as well. So it also tries to generate that view of how likely is this to deliver the value that we're anticipating. There's efficiency gains, velocity, how much more quickly can this be delivered. In other areas, that's like the farm to plate analogy, but it's here, really it's focusing on how can we impact the delivery of minutes. The ROI realization starts to talk to how quickly before we see the benefits associated with this, and then there's others around the task duplication, potential consolidation. What this tries to give us is an understanding of what the workforce experience and the work looks like at the moment, so we can focus on the biggest value, recognizing that we want to achieve an outcome in work, but we're also looking to invest the capital most wisely to achieve that outcome.
And I
I'll
think
jump
that's
on to the next slide.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Jacinta. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say too, like, when we talk to customers about this, the thing that probably stands out the most is that sort of the AI potential, or that potential of tasks that have been identified that don't need to sit in this person's role. And the thing is that that's what aged care providers are doing right now. Like, workforce strategists are going through, but it's a very manual process in terms of trying to understand, well, what are these people actually doing, and should they be doing it? And if they shouldn't be doing it, then who is going to be doing that, and how do we do? So I think that is a massive amount of work that's being faced by workforce strategists in this aged care sector. Whereas what this is showing is a far more surgical approach that's actually using data to help point you in the right direction to make those decisions, and to do it correctly and with purpose.
Yep, absolutely. The task management is not a new invention. The reason that it stopped being so widely practiced was the velocity of change in work. If you look before the 80s, we pretty much were able to document what everybody was doing because it was all paper-based. But from that point to this point, work has been transitioning at a significantly faster rate than at any other point in time, which meant that it became harder and harder to articulate what work was and how it could be structured. So the ability to manage it from a data perspective was lost during that time. So what we're able to do now with the technology that exists and that we've been working on is to start from a much more mature understanding by having looked across industries and see what work is being done at the moment. How would we describe that? What is it made up of? How much time is being spent? What's the value associated? And now we have those tools available to us and managed dynamically, so they are staying up to date with what's happening in the market, rather than having to stop and go back and start fresh. With our customers across all industries, they've got the opportunity to start from an 80 or 90% accuracy across the set of work that's being done, the effort that's being spent doing it, the amount of investment that's required to deliver that, so that we can quickly get to where should we be looking first, rather than looking at the squeakiest wheel or the shiniest toy. We're able to focus on what is going to shift the dial in the nature of the business.
You said something really interesting there, and I think our listeners are going to want to maybe know a bit more about that. So you talked about this being dynamic rather than static data, and I think that's super important. Can you just explain a little bit more about what you mean by that, especially when it comes to workforce strategy?
Yep, absolutely. So all of the models that we use are based on public data across our understanding of work, the work that's being done, the workforce, who's available, what the requirements are, the transitions of skill around that workforce and the application against the work. Across different industries, so where are we seeing movement between industries, but also how are we seeing these industries changing? So as we're watching work and it has described publicly or in standards or in regulation, how is it changing? And as we see that change, we see the nature of work progressing, which means that when we're talking to organisations, we can use that as a starting point, which is generally greater than 80% accurate in terms of description of work. That allows them to quickly get to this is what work looks like in our organisation today, and we can start from there to find out what's unique about our organisation. This also means that this is a starting point for the organisation, but as things change, we can work with our customers to say, well, okay, how do we want to deal with this change? Is this something that we're ready for that's not suitable for us? It's not relevant in our particular part of the industry, or we need to be aware of this and adopt to it, or we're addressing this in a different way. So I think the ability for our models to continue to dynamically adjust and reflect the current state of a market allows our customers to then look at their state and say, well, how am I deliberately changing my work?
Yeah.
And it sees as much as seeing the work change, it's seeing the tools that are being used. So where there's now requirement for experience with different platforms or different technologies, the ability there is to say, okay, well, is this something that's relevant for your use cases? Can we look at implementing this? How does the value proposition stack up?
Yeah, totally agree. We're seeing some really good questions come through, and actually, I'm just going to jump in because Teresa has just asked one that I think you'll be interested in. So, in terms of how we're capturing sort of task and subtask um, information, and I think what Teresa's asking as well, and I know you're really passionate about this piece too, is for other positions too, such as allied health professionals, because we know we're seeing a massive decline as well in allied health professionals, but also to sort of, more senior allied, head type roles too.
Yeah, really, really good question. And
Yeah.
this gets down to the level of detail that's required in order to start making these re-engineering decisions. So a task is a reasonably high level activity, as you've seen there, and it talks as much to an outcome as the process.
Yeah.
When we're trying to understand how we can break that work down and what the opportunities are to unlock it and either replace it with an automation or AI, or to upskill others, or to consolidate with other tasks being done by others in other roles and potentially in other capabilities. That requires a deeper level of understanding. So breaking down the tasks into the subtasks is key to bringing this to life, to understanding how this task can be broken up into automations or in other tasks. And that's really key, particularly in this use case, where we're looking to look at the non-care work and unlock that time so that the qualified professionals can be delivering more care, but then whether it's support through diagnostics or administration or any other tooling, the comms and the planning, the diagnostics and the reporting could potentially be picked up, and that time can be unlocked, whether it's by support from others or support through technology. So the architecture here, from breaking work down into tasks, is an easy and consumable label. Breaking it down to subtasks is really that step that starts to look at how we're going to solve this problem. And it also starts to, rather than just looking at it in that role perspective, and I think Teresa's made this observation, rather than just looking at the role, it starts to allow us to link these tasks together in the process. And now I can see along this, if it's taking 10 days to achieve the outcome of this process, and this process is material, what can we do about compressing that?
Yeah.
The farm to plate
right?
analogy, but in here, how much more quickly can I get that diagnostic output into the hands of the medical professional who's going to make the next decision and accelerate that outcome?
Yeah.
Getting
Shelley,
excited about
that
this.
probably leads us nicely on to some of the next few slides. So I know we've talked about this one a little bit. Is there any more sort of on this piece that you want to go to, or shall we jump straight into some of the data?
I think just quickly that the two on the right hand side probably worth touching on. So what's the opportunity and how quickly we can pay it back really drives the commercial side of that consideration. But understanding how similar work is, how adjacent work is at the task or the subtask level, is where we start to see opportunities for task or skill adjacency. When can we bring these together and use that alignment, that re-engineering of work to free up time? And reskilling requirements are in those areas where they need to pick up additional skills because we're asking them to do effectively a net new task. That is material. We want to be able to call that out because that's part of the value proposition as well.
Agree.
As I said, when we looked at the most impacted, the ones that stand at the fore are the registered nurses, the ENs, the PCWs. But I think super material in making sure they're able to deliver an outcome is looking at those adjacent professionals who can do some of the lifting that's currently being done at the bedside or in the home. Diagnostic and monitoring is one of those areas where some of those tasks which are taking onerous time from nursing around the reporting and the diagnosis, around the analysis and the communication, can be uplifted so that they are still involved in that process at the touch point when their professional input is required. But diagnostics around this can move the dial significantly in that throughput, removing from them the time it takes to do this task, to acquire the information from the systems that it's in, to understand and analyze it, to put it adjacent to the plan, such that empowering these adjacent roles to deliver on some of these key factors in a quicker way allows the impacted roles that we talked about, the nursing and the PCWs, to deliver more care. significantly more care. Impact on this existing workforce. So there is an existing workforce around diagnostics and monitoring. This will continue to increase and increase significantly as remote health monitoring and telemetry continues to increase in how widespread it is, as the move to home care and remote care continues to grow. So the workforce size here to support that deployment of technology is going to grow. More than in other areas, recognising this is healthcare comes along with it a significant impact in certification. So some of these do take some time to implement, but clearly this is key to freeing up the time on the front face of care.
Powerful.
Another role we might look at, if we just jump to the next slide, is the personal care workers, and I think they were one of the areas that was most significantly impacted by likely reductions in workforce availability when we thought about that, when we looked at those stats from previous reporting. And this is an example where it really cuts to the quick. This is about a workforce declining and an aged population increasing. So it's not just that we need them. We need to grow the workforce because that hasn't proven to be the solution. It is about making sure that we can access more of their availability to the order of 20 or 30%. So while the impact on the workforce size as a result of increased requirements in care minutes legislation is increasing, it's more likely that we are going to have to make them more efficient with the minutes that they have available and where they're applying them. And a lot of that will be on the downstream side of that previous example around diagnostics, about receiving the information in a much more time efficient manner and knowing what to do with it in the moment, rather than necessarily having to go out there and gather the data from checkups or monitoring. That information being available to then act on in the moment rather than acquire. At the same time, about the way we think about it, I think you called it out on the way through the slides really well, is our philosophy here in an age where AI can be seen as taking work is to ensure that we are thinking about this in a way that is both bold, so not waiting until it's too late, but understanding how do I move now and take advantage, but also responsible. So how can I do that in a way that's going to continue to add value to my workforce, not put them at risk, not give them put them in pressure, but to ensure that we're amplifying their ability to deliver the value that they currently are and make them more valuable as a result. And one of the areas across industries that's getting a lot of focus in terms of roles at risk are general administrative roles. So ones that have been data entry, data collection, processing, or general operational administration tasks. A lot of those tasks, highly repetitive, highly detailed, are well suited to the current state of existing technology in this place. So there's a lot of mature technologies that are solving admin. The opportunity here then is to leverage that to unlock this workforce that exists in the aged care industry, such that they are doing some of this lifting around the non-care activities that your nursing and your PCW staff are doing. So giving them the ability to perform or support the analytics, or to implement the automation processes, or to start to communicate in the way that's required under the management of health data, so that those activities are being done in a way that makes the care delivery much more efficient. And not only does that ensure that the administration roles in this industry aren't at risk, they've got a future. They've got a future that's not only supporting the ability to deliver more care, but is also more valuable to them. It's increased their level of capability inside the organisation with additional skills that are specifically relevant to the successful delivery of technology here. There's a lot of, as I said, in the admin space, there's already a lot of really mature AI and automation tools that are delivering on this. So there's a lot of tooling and education available to upskill. On the individual side, this is a significant uplift in their value. So we are seeing an increase in the value of the individual reflected in salary, but also in their ability to deliver for the organisation.
I think this is so critical to a number of the conversations that we're having, just in terms of like that reskilling and what we were talking about earlier around, once you understand the work and the workers, you can identify the skills gaps, and you can start to be far more proactive when it comes to your not just your workforce strategy, but your learning and development strategy and program as well. And we know a number of providers are registered training providers too. So, and often the Achilles heel or what gets in the way is providers not understanding who their workforce are and the gaps that they have. And they have these amazing opportunities when it comes to training. But in order to be able to identify the right people and when to go on sessions and to do what with, to upskill in which areas can be really tricky. So, I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if we could use, and we can do this, but wouldn't it be amazing if providers could use AI to understand of their personal care workers, which ones are sort of ready, willing, and able to start moving towards an assistant nursing role or towards an EN role? And then of our ENs, which ones are ready and capable to start moving towards the registered nursing roles, and so on and so on. So I think the dynamic nature of what you were talking about before really gives quite powerful intelligence to providers to help identify the opportunities within their workforce and serve those opportunities up in real time. And imagine being a personal care worker as well, and having a provider proactively go to you saying, hey, we recognize that you have these amazing skills, but we can also see you've got these skill gaps. Let's start working towards some training options that could get you towards an assistant nursing role or whatnot. It's a pretty powerful conversation to have. It's going to help with engagement, obviously retention. We're in a human-centered business here. It's something that we really want to be striving towards. Super important.
Absolutely. And that conversation is true for everybody in the organization. So everybody who's working in aged care is involved in delivering quality care. Doesn't matter what role you're in. And the ability here is to start connecting that delivery together, where you can see a part of somebody who's, so the PCWs, the ENs, the RNs, that's clear. You can see someone here in the administrative space where I can say, I can link you to
Exactly.
a tool which is supporting the delivery of the development of plans. So it's not the approval of the plan or implementing the plan, but there's a tool which allows us now, based on what we know about all of the people under our care, that these are the plans that are going to work for them. And that's using their existing skills, identifying how can we transfer those skills or to tasks that are using a different set of tooling to support the frontline work, allows all of the workforce to be more closely integrated with the delivery of care. Because it's, as we've said, the issue here isn't that we want to reduce workforce. The issue here is we need to make the workforce more efficient because of the issues we have around workforce shortage. So, so that workforce, and it's not about working harder, it's about making sure that we identify those opportunities that are and it has to be at a task level and a subtask level to move that work, that non-care work, into the hands of those who can deliver it.
Absolutely. I can just imagine a lot of people are saying, this is great, how do we do it? Because it can be quite overwhelming. It can be confronting, and I mentioned that before in some of the conversations that we're having as well. So I wanted to sort of just kind of step out a bit of a 4-step process here in terms of how you can think about taking action now. Obviously, the first one is AI-driven workforce mapping. This is that work ontology piece that Mike was talking about before. So the first step is really understanding where your workforce stands today. So the AI-driven mapping that Mike was showing us before obviously allows providers to identify those inefficiencies in the workforce utilization, pinpoint gaps in the care delivery, and ensure that all the available resources are being used effectively. That is the most important thing to do. You need to understand your work and where the time is being spent. Step 2, this is all around, once we understand where those inefficiencies exist, it's all about reallocating that work intelligently. So as we mentioned before, using data to make those decisions, it's a really surgical approach. AI can help you to match the right people to the right tasks, So making sure that RNs, ENs, personal care workers are focusing on the human-centered tasks that they're supposed to be on and delivering the highest possible quality of care. Next is all around step 3. So workforce planning, we know it's an ongoing challenge. It's tough right now being a workforce planner in an aged care provider. And providers need a way to continuously adapt. So an AI-driven workforce optimization tool, as you mentioned, is dynamic. It can provide that dynamic workforce strategy. It's constantly going to be moving with the intelligence that it's receiving at that time. So one that obviously makes sure that there's compliance, but without overburdening our staff. And I think that's what we need to be really cognizant of too, is the staff burnout. So I guess the benefit of that is allowing providers to essentially predict workforce shortages and trends, anticipate scheduling gaps, and ensure that those care minutes are being met efficiently. And they're core challenges right in the middle of this sector. And then step 4, finally, this is all around workforce sustainability, and that is key. So instead of relying on hiring externally, so those expensive, I can't speak, those expensive external hires, we need to be thinking about investing in our own workforce. I mean, at the end of the day, that's really what we're here to focus on. So you need to be able to use AI to identify, as I mentioned earlier, those upskilling opportunities and defining those clear pathways for your teams. So enabling, as we said, PCWs to transition into those EN roles and so forth and so forth. And this doesn't just help with retention, it's just ensuring that we've got that continuous pipeline of qualified care minutes, care workers to meet the increasing demand and to deliver to those mandated care minutes. Is there anything else that you think to add to that, Mike, in terms of?
No, I think you've done a really good job of summarising the step-by-step approach to getting to success. I think stepping back and looking at this, I see in each of these steps kind of the linkage to AI and the linkage to technology. I think this, more than any other industry that we've analysed, to achieve the outcomes that we need to achieve, the most significant innovations in senior care, in aged care, are not going to come from technology and tools. They're going to come from rethinking how the work is delivered. And this is a step, while it's focusing on leveraging technology to do that, it is fundamentally helping us to rethink how the work is going to be done. And that's what's going to get to a successful future in aged care.
It's so exciting. And the World Economic Forum put out last month their Future of Work report for 2025. And in that, they talk about sort of more broadly the community care sector, but how there's going to be significant uptake, especially when it comes to the understanding and utilization of AI and automation. But what's really interesting, and it talks about it in here, is the whole relationship between human-machine collaboration. And I love that that phrase. And this is all in relevance to the fact that of all industries, and the WEF calls it out, and it's a no-brainer, of course, this is such a human-centered industry, but it doesn't mean that because you're human-centered, you're not going to consider, the benefits of technology, automation, AI to help to deliver to that. So this beautiful phrase of that human-machine collaboration, I think, just really centers and focuses beautifully when it comes to this sector. Anyway, I digress. So, but when we think about all of that, what's the impact, and really, what are we all here to achieve? Let's understand where our care minutes are being lost. Let's ensure that compliance, we're meeting compliance and that we're avoiding any potential sort of financial penalties. Let's leverage workforce data and create that care first strategy. And again, let's use AI to optimize our staff developments our career mobility and of course retention. So, you know, it isn't just about compliance, it's about ensuring the best possible care, of course, for our residents and all around, while we're creating a stronger and far more sustainable workforce. And it's about, you know, helping providers move from that reactive approach to that proactive one when it comes to strategic workforce planning. We are bang on time, but Mike, do you have any other thoughts before we jump to Q&A?
I think the other thing that we did touch on, and I think it's on the last two slides there, what sits behind those is going to be reskilling, so upskilling and reskilling. So it's not a strategy anymore. I think it's clear here that in order to leverage the workforce, reskilling is the imperative in the industry to make sure that every worker, and as we said, every worker is critical to patient outcomes. So we're making sure that we're putting them in the position where we can deliver and maximize the patient outcomes. Reskilling is not a strategy. It's critical to delivering it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a couple of questions coming through. Can you see those, Mike?
Yeah. So there's one from second one from Teresa, and she was talking, I think, back to the implementation roadmap in step 2, which was AI-powered redeployment to move staff into high-impact roles. So are pilots a common starting point in the automation of tasks and increasing human-to-human tasks, and maybe a case study? So pilots are a typical way of opening the door here, because there's a number of changes that happen inside of an organization in order to make sure this is successful. So identifying a particular area that is suitable for, but also engaged in the kind of transformation that's necessary, is a key way of landing it inside with a customer and then expanding beyond that. So we typically do see starting in a pilot or a specific cohort to demonstrate value, and then working up from that. Particularly in the age of healthcare, I'm sure you've asked for case studies. We can grab a couple of case studies and probably circulate it to the attendees here, just to give you a bit of background about what has been achieved in this space already.
Yeah. And commonly when we're talking to our customers about pilots, Teresa, we ask for like the really challenging areas. So I guess in this case, if there's any sort of, you know, residential care homes or a group of homes in a particular area, you know, that are causing people to stay up at night, that's often a good place for us to start really understanding the work ontology and mapping out, you know, where we think the efficiencies and the quick wins can lie in those particular areas.
Yep. The data points that come out for all of these roles kind of touch on, as we said, AI potential and likelihood of delivering success, operational efficiency, and how is it going to ensure that organizations remain competitive, and time to benefits realization. So how quickly will you see value? And those three kind of levers, we see our customers have different drivers. What's important to them? Do they have a huge pressing issue that they need to address? It's the biggest issue, the biggest part of their business that has the most impact. We need to focus on that. Or sometimes customers are looking for the ability to demonstrate a quick win, so that the team that's responsible for this is starting to show that transformation is possible. This is our plan. We've executed the plan. We've delivered quickly. Now we can follow that in terms of prioritizing where we spend our effort going forward. So I think each organization has their own priorities about how do they measure value? What's important to them? Is it big because they're on fire, or is it quickly to generate trust? And the metrics that we generate kind of help you prioritize based on those. Yeah.
We've got a really great question here from Kitty. I don't know if you can see that one there, Mark, but I'm sorry, Mike, but we're talking about work that that can be done. Like, how are we getting this information? So Kitty's asking, is it done in the platform, or how does that sort of all come about?
Yeah, really good question. So as we said, we're acquiring a lot of data from general industry sources, both related to the work and the workers and the workforce, as well as the tooling that's been used. That's how we, and previous work with customers, that's how we build our ontologies across industries with confidence. What that brings us to is, at least in our view, at least 80% accuracy across the tasks that are being delivered by each of these roles to achieve the outcomes. What we see with our customers is that gives them something that's not a blank sheet to start with. So where the process might be for the people teams to start a conversation with the business about what is it that your people are doing so that we can start this process, it often becomes confrontational, because, as we've said, work is changing so fast that if a leader is asked, what do your people do, it gets confrontational because maybe they're not completely certain. What we've found is the ability to start that conversation with, this is what we think your work looks like, immediately becomes, well, this is what's different about us. And we're very quickly at that 95 to 100% description of what the work is. Yeah. That happens in platform. That allows us to quickly prioritize, as I said, whether it's using the biggest bang for buck, the quickest return, operational efficiency. We can work out what the prioritization of impact could be in order to start delivering a program of works.
Yeah, amazing. Some really great questions. Thanks so much, everyone. But I think we need to, I'm being told we need to wrap up. For those who would like to continue the conversation and talk further, we would love to invite you to book a skills masterclass with us. We'll, be able to show you exactly, I guess, how we can help you address some of these workforce challenges that we've talked about. So look, please feel free, DM myself or Mike, click on the QR code, reach out. We'd love to keep sharing with you what we're working on, how we're helping providers, and how we're proactively working to solve some of these challenges with you all. So look, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Mike, as always, you're awesome. So thank you for working with me on this session, and please, everybody, do reach out.